We're on the same
When I
side.
woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
One about the past and one about the future.
Welcome back to Draftvice. We are now doing a fantasy football episode of Draftvice. And we are here. It is me, the Walter, and I'm here with Harry, the Van Ness.
Hello.
You can follow him at Harry Van Ness on Instagram. You can follow me at Brojo Death Punch, Brojo. Death is in the end of life. Punch, that delicious drink. And you can follow the podcast at Draftvice on Twitter and at Draftvice_football on the Instagram. I would definitely check out the Instagram. We also have a website. We got a Facebook page. We got everything, folks. And we are here talking about fantasy because, dude, it's the biggest fantasy draft weekend is this weekend.
Yep.
And everybody is...
everybody's looking to draft their players. You know, you obviously don't want to do it before preseason because tons of injuries already. Saw what happened with Lamar Miller, and which was by far the biggest loss the AFC South experienced yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Lamar Miller was that big loss.
Yeah.
I do like who's going to probably be replacing him, ex-Cleveland Brown, Duke Johnson.
Yes.
Who just got traded to them recently. Dude, he's a solid player. I think he can be a three-down back. I don't know why he was never really utilized as that. Now the Browns have Nick Chubb, so they don't need him, and they also have Kareem Hunt as a backup.
Mm-hmm.
So
Kareem Hunt as a backup, a guy who led the league in rushing 2 years ago. Really solid option as a backup.
right. So with that being said, I like Duke Johnson. I just don't like the Texans' offensive line. I think Deshaun Watson might get dying this year. He might die.
Yeah.
So for fantasy wise, I'm moving Duke Johnson up, man. Like I think I have him as at least a top 24. He's down definitely an RB2.
And plus and maybe you could just like switch Lamar Miller's spot out with Duke Johnson because
I also think he's better, and he's also a better pass catcher. And they traded for him already with an intention of using him. Now he's going to have whatever Lamar Miller's production was, plus the fact that he's probably one of the best route running backs in the NFL. He's a legit receiving threat, and when you have a guy like that, the versatility. He can run in, inside and out. And now that also they're not going to get a lot of push from that offensive line, but I am very intrigued at Duke Johnson as a three-down back.
Yeah.
So I look forward to seeing what comes out of that. He's moved up to probably like the by the time after this comes out, there will be official ranks for Duke Johnson, but probably RB24 and might even be higher. Because also Marlon Mack's probably going down in my rank too. Although I don't know if I might not move him down because I don't know if you heard. There was a guy who may or may not have retired.
Yep.
His name was the Andrew Luck. Yeah, Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck retired out of nowhere, and this is throwing every rank everybody's ever had into a frenzy. What do you do with Marlon Mack? What do you do with T.Y. Hilton? What do you do with if you had Eric Ebron or any of the receivers that are on that team? Jacoby Brissett. What was it? T.Y. Hilton was wide receiver 27 with Jacoby Brissett. So, yeah, I can understand 2 years ago. So I can understand maybe keeping T.Y. as a wide receiver 2-3 spot, but he's no longer a top 15 receiver.
Yeah.
Even if you think he could be better than that, I mean, at this point, by the time I release my new ranks on this, it's going to be he moves down. Probably the next probably down by, you're in the Josh Gordon range kind of deal. Guys you're just not entirely sure of, but can probably pop and be a solid player.
Yeah.
So now Jacoby Brissett has a better O-line than when he played 2 years ago. So he might end up being fantasy relevant. He might be a good streamer eventually because he's mobile. And I think you had a friend of yours that you were...
Yes, I do. I think I have the exact opposite idea about the Colts QB situation. I think Jacoby Brissett's going to struggle first 4 games, which is luckily Chad Kelly comes off a suspension, comes in, takes over a starting job, and he balls out. He would have started for Denver last year if he didn't, just casually stumble into somebody's house looking for Marco. I mean, who hasn't stumbled into a house looking for somebody named Marco?
Right. I remember when that came out, and I was like, that's such a weird story. Why were you randomly in somebody's house?
Drugs.
That's what it does to you, man.
On his mugshot, I remember one eye was looking at you, the other was looking for you.
And see, now this is with fantasy, this changes my whole rank setup because Andrew Luck was originally going to be my QB3, Then he was like the injury risk. I put him at QB7. Now he's off the board. I now have Carson Wentz as QB3
Wow.
because I think there's a better likelihood that Carson Wentz makes it to the playoffs than Deshaun Watson. I think there's a better chance that Wentz will be more productive than Deshaun Watson.
No, I love it's like I like Carson Wentz. Think he's a really handsome dude, but I'm just not buying that he could stay healthy for a whole year. You know?
Dude, they built up that offensive line.
No, they did.
And dude, they have backups that could start on other teams. I truly believe the Eagles are the team to beat in the NFC East this year.
But who got hurt the other day? Was it for the Eagles? I forgot which quarterback was it that got hurt.
Oh, Sudfeld?
Yes, fucking Sudfeld.
And then Kessler too, the ex-Brown.
Yeah, I don't see them being good. I still wouldn't.
Well, no, that's why they signed Josh McCown.
I know, but I watched
Josh McCown.
I watched Josh McCown play last year, and trust me, he was good.
But he'll have time.
No, he was good 2 years ago, but
so you know what it is. You handcuff your Carson Wentz. Don't handcuff quarterbacks. Handcuff your Carson Wentz with your Josh McCown pick.
Yeah.
Make sure you don't lose out on that Eagles exciting. Actually, one guy I want to talk about from the Eagles. He's not going to be a big player this year, but he made some moves in the preseason. Was J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
Yeah.
Dude, I liked him coming out of the draft. Mm-hmm. He has that ability.
Was that the run back from Penn State?
No, that's Miles Sanders.
Okay.
That's the other guy that everybody's been talking about too. But J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's a receiver, and he I get glimpses of what's his name, Devontae Adams with him.
Yeah.
Like him, he just really good release off the line of scrimmage, good at boxing out people, good catching with his hands. Great, solid route runner. I like JJ. I just don't think he's going to be. I think if Nelson Aguilar gets traded or gets cut,
yeah,
I think you'll see a lot more out of him.
Which might happen because I remember he didn't he sexually assault a stripper a few years ago. I'm pretty sure he did.
Was that Aguilar?
It was. I'm pretty sure it was Aguilar.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, did not know that. And then
now you know.
And then there's also the Zeke Elliott and Gordon holdouts that we got to talk about, because those were Zeke Elliott. I don't know where to put him in ranks. Like I have him 1 minute at RB5 when I think he might only miss a couple of games, and then I have him all the way down to RB11 where I'm like
hold out the entire season.
Could he? Because at this point he might as well if he's not getting what he wants. And I feel like a deal's not going to get made 1 minute, and then I feel like
two big heads going at Jerry Jones and
Zeke Elliott.
And you also have to remember they have a bunch of other guys they need to pay. They're going to need to pay Dak soon, and they also have Amari Cooper who's going to want Michael Thomas type.
And
money.
they just paid Jalen Samuels.
Yeah, they did.
So James Smith. So that. I don't know, man. I just don't know what to do with the Zeke Elliott situation. I think what you do is if you do draft Zeke Elliott, you almost have to spend like an eighth or almost a ninth rounder on Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
Who might be his backup or might be his handcuff. Now the thing with Tony Pollard is he going to be if I knew Tony Pollard was going to be the every down back without Zeke, yeah, I'd take Zeke in the first round. I'd take Tony Pollard as a later pick, and you'd at least know you have everything locked up. And maybe he's worth it at that point. But you don't know if Tony Pollard, if it's going to be a running back by committee, it's going to be 3 different running backs playing. So I don't know, man. It's a scary situation when you look at the Zeke Elliott thing for fantasy.
Yeah.
And that offensive line is great. Zeke's a great runner. He makes the O-line better, and that O-line's already good.
He's the best running back at running it straight up the gut. If I need to go to the outside, I'd pick Saquon Barkley. But if it's just to get first down or just run it through the gap, it'd be Zeke 100.
I think Saquon's a better athlete. I think Zeke's got
that.
better vision and power, and also I think Saquon's a better route runner and a better receiver. But when it comes to just trying to go through
people, it's Zeke 100%.
Yeah, so I don't know what to do with this, and I feel like it's your gut that has to come up on it. That you go, okay, I feel like he's going to be there this week. I put him at RB5 because if he hasn't reported yet, but you feel good about it, I could see you think he's going to maybe miss 1 or 2 games. He's worth a first round pick.
Yeah,
and then you're probably and you take Tony Pollard because him at 10 games is still great. Mm-hmm. If you think he's going to miss the whole season, that the Cowboys or him aren't going to go ahead and meet, then you blew a first round pick.
Yeah.
So I go all the way from RB5 to RB11 sometimes, and it really kind of it's a weird situation. And then there's Melvin Gordon, who's going like third, fourth round now.
Yeah, he's holding out too.
And I think he's really going to hold out into the season. If he misses 1 or 2 games and you get him in the third or fourth round, he's a steal. Or if he gets traded.
How about this? Melvin Gordon for Zeke Elliott straight up, because Cowboys are not going to have to pay as much for Melvin Gordon, and they got a great line. And plus, the Chargers, they got more money to spend, and they could use that on Zeke also. So that's not going to happen, of course, but that
might be a funny gameplay of because not for nothing, I like Melvin Gordon a lot. I think Melvin Gordon's underrated. You're not losing a huge step on Zeke, and he would take the deal that Zeke got offered. So So I actually don't mind that idea. With Melvin Gordon, the thing is Austin Eckler has independent value, which has a plus and a minus. On the upside, even if you spend a draft pick on Austin Eckler, it'd probably be a 6th round pick.
Yeah.
Even if Melvin Gordon comes back, you could probably keep him as a flex player. But the big problem is then you have to spend a 3rd round pick and a 6th round pick on one position almost.
Yeah.
That on one team, on one player. And it's kind of a weird way to try to, you're handcuffing. So you're trying to lock up those 2 players. You're trying to keep it together. You don't want to end up losing out on... Now, granted, I think that offensive line's going to take a step back. Russell Okung might not play this year. So that's a big part. Losing your left tackle is a very big deal. And then there's also Justin Jackson, who's probably going a few rounds later that you might want to take a flyer on, especially if you missed out on Austin Eckler. So... that was a lot of the most recent stuff. And then I'm also kind of down on the Arizona Cardinals. I think we talked about this. That offensive line's already kind of gross. And then you're, like I was saying another time, Cliff, I'm not quite sure Kingsbury knows how to run an NFL offense. There's just certain things where you're seeing with Kyler Murray in the preseason, where how they're running some of these schemed plays that they're not. This isn't like watching Matt Nagy or Frank Reich. Now maybe we get to the first game of the season and he's just playing games with us and making look like he's an idiot because he set up the center kind of on an island.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of drafting anybody on the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm not quite sure where I take. I'm a little bit more worried about David Johnson. Than I was before.
He's been banged up before, and like Walter said, they just have a bad offensive line and
a weird scheme.
Yeah.
So, we were going to talk about five bold predictions,
For
each
fantasy.
one of us, for fantasy. Bold. Because the bold, the brave, the beautiful,
Yes.
fantasy football. Well, now without Andrew Luck, I think my first bold prediction is Jacoby Brissett will be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL for fantasy. I know your instant response to that is going to be...
Wait, don't spoil it.
Oh.
Don't spoil it. I want to be...
He's a running quarterback. He's got a better offensive line than when he previously played. He's got a few more weapons than he used to. He's been in Frank Reich's system for a bit. He knows what Frank Reich wants from him. They're going to be able to run the zone read with him. They're going to be able to do a lot of different things with Jacoby Brissett, and he's been prepped for this. I think they knew for a while now that this was a possibility. So I think they went into it knowing, hey, we'll get him prepped, we'll get him going. We're going to build a system that will work for him. And I think I believe enough in Frank Reich and Ballard to go ahead and at least try to win with him this year and try to get some points. And like I say, he's a running quarterback. He's going to have T.Y. Hilton. He's going to throw a couple of deep balls to him. Let's see how it goes.
I'm going the exact opposite. I think Jacoby Brissett is going to struggle. Going to be 1-3 like they were the first 4 games last year. So then coming off suspension, Chad Kelly's going to come out shooting. No pun intended, because remember he threatened to shoot up a bar one time. But hey, that's because he's a badass and he could do it. Chad Kelly, anytime he's gotten action in preseason, he was just been balling out. He's also a great running quarterback. Guy's got a gun. That one time it was unintentional, but yeah, as long as he stays away from parties at Von Miller's house, I think you can expect to see Chad Kelly starting, and I think he's going to be winning with the Colts. I really am high on Chad Kelly.
Well, yeah, so we are totally opposite on our Indianapolis Colts fantasy takes, basically. I still don't think T.Y. Hilton starts as and this isn't a bold take. This is just me saying I don't think he's going to end up being a top 24 receiver. Who I do think is going to be top 20 receiver for fantasy is Jarvis Landry.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be this
yeah.
year's Adam Thielen. People are going to underrate him, and he's going to end up being a lot better than people were expecting because people forget him and Odell both led the league one year in run after catch. So now you have both of them on the same team. You can't double cover both of them. You're going to leave somebody open. Between the two of them and Rashard Higgins, it's going to be a dangerous... Baker has a lot of weapons. I think he's going to be throwing short a lot. That offensive line's not going to be able to hold up very long. I think that Nick Chubb's going to get a lot of passes as well. But I think Jarvis Landry is going to get a lot of work out of the slot. And I think he's going to be getting a lot of those first downs. And now Baker has more chemistry with Jarvis as well, getting a full offseason to work with him. So that is my bold prediction number 2.
All right, my bold prediction number 2. Todd Gurley is not worth a first-round pick. I know he's been statistically the best the past 2 years, but again, he wasn't 100% when Super Bowl run, obviously, because they were having C.J. Anderson carry most of the load. Who's, he's a decent third down back, but he's nothing more than that. Especially you don't play him when Todd Gurley's your guy. And they just got this kid from Memphis, and I think they're going to take the guy from Memphis at number 27. It's I'll remember.
Darrell Henderson.
Yeah, Darrell Henderson. I heard they're going to try and take some of the load off of Todd Gurley, which is a smart move in my opinion. But also you have to remember, Todd Gurley came into this league fragile because remember his last
He already
year,
had a knee issue.
Yeah, he destroyed his knee in Georgia, and people were amazed that.
It feels like every Georgia running back ever.
Except Sonny Michel, he hasn't.
He's got a knee issue. He had a knee scope last year. He's had knee issues this year. He's got arthritic knees. He's got the same exact problem as Todd Gurley.
Damn, you're right.
And then there's Nick Chubb, another Georgia running back
who's banged up.
Well, he eviscerated his knee when he was at Georgia.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They put it back together.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
But now he's not been that bad, so I don't know what's going on. Great doctors, great responsibility. I guess my other bold prediction shouldn't be a Browns prediction, right? I think it's going to be D.D. Westbrook is a top 24 receiver in fantasy. These are both receiver predictions, I guess. I will have to find a running back by the time we get to this next bold prediction. But D.D. Westbrook is going to be I feel like the number one on the Jaguars. I think Nick Foles can pass the ball. If they're a functional offense, then I think he's worth the pickup. And D.D. Westbrook will be the number one, and I think he'll get a lot of play all over the field, but also out of the slot. Dude's athletic. He's versatile. He's built like almost a skinny, fast running back, but playing wide receiver. He's a decent route runner. He had some off the field issues, but he was kind of like a Tyreek Hill, where people were willing to overlook the off the field for what he can do, and we've seen glimpses of it the last 2 years. And I think Nick Foles is much better than Blake Bortles, and I think he'll at least show a little bit. I think John DeFilippo knows what works for him. So my hot take is D.D. Westbrook will be a top 24 fantasy wide receiver.
All right. And my third hot take, I'm going to say it right now, Evan Ingram will be more valuable at tight end than Zach Ertz. Because think of it.
Ooh, that is an interesting one.
Well, think of it, all the Giants receivers are gone, so when the ball's not going to Saquon Barkley, it's going to be going to Evan Ingram more often than not. Also you'll have to worry about Carson Wentz. It's a big downgrade going from Carson Wentz to Josh McCown going to you. So it could go from Wentz to McCown in just a snap. And also you have to remember they have Dallas Goedert also who will be taking.
Well, there's a lot more weapons in that offense this year. There's Dallas Goedert, there's Nelson Aguilar, Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson.
Oh yeah, I forgot Jackson's back with them.
They also have a running back who could pass catch now in Miles Sanders.
Don't they have Jordan Howard now also?
Yeah, but he can't catch balls.
No,
he has no idea how to catch.
Yeah, that's true.
He's dropped more balls than a Vegas stripper.
A kid in puberty.
Oh, there we go. So, yeah. I think this next one's got to be a running back one. I think Matt Breida is better than Tevin Coleman this year in fantasy by a long shot. I think he's going to end up being a top. I don't have him ranked as a top 20 RB, but I could see it happening, and I could see him being RB 15 and beating Tevin Coleman in points. I think he has more. He is the better vision. He's the better running back. He might not be the better pass catcher, and he might not be the better athlete, but I feel like he's the better running back.
Right.
So, and for some reason, Shanahan's systems seem to do really well with running backs. So, only problem is their O-line in the middle is a little suspect. So, hopefully they figure all that out.
All right, my pick, this probably isn't really that much of a hot take, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I'm picking Alvin Kamara to lead the league in rushing. I know
I dig it.
That's really not. I know it's not that hot, but just think of it like this way: Zeke, there's a good chance he's not going to make the whole. He's not going to play the whole year. You know, I mentioned Todd Gurley's issues with injuries in the past, and I guess you do have Saquon Barkley, but again, Giants O-line isn't great and stuff.
It is better though.
Yeah, it is
that
better.
The addition of Zeitler, I think Will Hernandez is going to take a step forward this year. You also have at least 2 average tackles.
Yeah.
And then they believe in Jalapio at center. Mm-hmm. So between those guys, I think it's actually not a bad setup at offensive line.
Still not as bad as the Saints offensive line also. The Saints have a great offensive line, but you also have to remember Breeze is getting up there, so you're going to have to rely on the run game with Kamara more. And he's also just going to get more carries now that Ingram's gone, so...
I like that idea. I like that thought. I almost had Kamara as my number 1 in fantasy this year, and I can see any of the top 3 guys, 4 if you count Zeke, being the number 1 in fantasy for your pick. And Kamara is amazing. I think Kamara is a great route runner as a running back. He can catch the ball really well. He also can run in between the tackles. And I've said this before: Saints addressed the offensive line when they lost Unger. By getting somebody in free agency and drafting somebody. If there's anybody who I don't worry about as far as their offensive line, it's the Saints.
Yeah.
So I think they have a top 5 offensive line this year, and I think Kamara, there's a lot to like about him. Now, my big worry with Kamara is there's always injury risk with running backs. He's not built the most sturdy.
No.
So I dig it with Kamara. Are we in the last one or the 4th?
Yeah, I think we're in the 5th.
We're in the 5th. That's right.
Yeah.
Do I pick quarterback, or is it just not worth it with the quarterbacks? I didn't do a tight end, right?
No, I don't think so.
There's not really much to say about tight ends. Maybe I'll go back to running back. I think what's a good one that would probably be a good shocker? I think. Oh, we talked a bit about the Lamar Miller thing with Duke Johnson.
Yeah.
I think Duke Johnson is a top 20 running back for fantasy.
Yeah, not bad.
And I think, not because that O-line's going to be great, but he's dealt with bad O-lines before when he was on the Browns and they basically tore up the offensive line. He will find a way to work and win. And I think that he fits what Deshaun Watson needs as a running back, where he can pass block, he could also pass catch. He's especially when your offensive line's not doing anything, the check down is going to be the next best thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Duke Johnson, especially in PPR, will be a top 20. I think he can even make it up to 15. Oh, and for also a side note, I think Chris Carson is outside of the top 25 in fantasy.
Yeah. I don't really see the big thing about Chris Carson. And probably my last hot take, I think Sony Michel is a solid choice as a number 2 running back.
I actually like Sony Michel.
Yeah.
And I've had him higher than a lot of other people, and I'm shocked that he's going so late in a lot of drafts.
No, yours it's always safe bet. He's going to be putting up run back with the Pats. He may not get as much carries, but he's going to make the most out of them. Like, I remember a few years ago, I was able to win a game. So, I had, no good running backs. My best running back was LeGarrette Blount, but he won a few games for me just by, remember it was Jacoby Brissett was starting for the Pats. It was Thursday night against the Texans. Then all they did was just run it down with LeGarrette Blount. He scored, 2 touchdowns. I think had over 100 yards. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
And I think Sony Michel scored, but all but one of New England's touchdowns during the playoffs. So I like Sony Michel.
I like Sony Michel. I like that the Patriots do like to run the ball. They do a little bit of the RB by committee thing, but I think they're going to try to utilize Sony Michel while they can, especially because he has 3 down back ability.
Yeah,
he can do everything right. He's a good inside runner. He's a tough runner as well. I like Sony Michel, man. I wish I almost kind of wish I put him up a little bit higher, But I think he's in that. I have him as a top 20 running back. I think I like him and Aaron Jones in that area. Kerryon Johnson, of those that field of running backs. I think there's value to them.
Yeah.
So, that wraps up our bold predictions, man.
I just realized something like 4 out of my 5 picks were either had to do with Ole Miss guys or Georgia guys.
There you go.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can follow Harry at Harry Van Ness on Instagram. And don't you have a show coming up, Harry?
I'm glad you asked because, as a matter of fact, I do. I'm going to be performing at Mic'd Up. It's a local showcase at Levity Live Comedy Club, hosted by the very funny Dave Satzik.
That's in Nyack, New York?
Yes, Nyack, New York.
West
September 5th. Show starts at 8, but should probably get there a little bit earlier. I'll have Chrissy Mayer headlining, one of the top headliners in New York City. So please check that out.
And if you want, you can follow the podcast at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. You can check out the website at draftvice.com. And but I think the Instagram probably the best spot to find us. You could also follow us on Facebook. We got so many ways of following us. You can follow us home at night. And you can follow me at Brojo Death Punch. That's BROJO. Death, DEATH. Punch, PUNCH, in case you don't know what those words were. And if you're listening to this on iTunes, subscribe, leave a review, preferably 5 stars. And if you're watching this on the YouTube, subscribe, like it, leave a comment, and share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your grandma, share it with your sister. Peace.
We're on the same
When I
side.
woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
About the past and about the future.